Hey Nick, I want to get back to you if I can on this video, and because you're, crossing some threshold issues here, and I think that is worth commenting on. I hope it's okay. I sent you in a video yesterday that didn't get posted. I didn't know if I might have offended you somehow. Um, but I'm going to send one. I'm going to send one in today. I haven't seen the Marshall Auerbach and Rob Parento video piece at 2.0. I'll take a look at it later. But just wanted to, because you're trying to lay out some certain structural understanding of the money systems, and so I wanted to just have a little bit of a chat about that. You know, you start out talking about monetary policy and fiscal policy, and how monetary policy represents the stuff that the central bank does and is responsible for, okay, versus fiscal policy being the tax and spending, that goes on within the budgeting of government itself. So you have government responsible for fiscal policy and the quote central bank responsible for monetary policy, but the question is, whose central bank is it? You know, who's responsible for the actions of the central bank in carrying out monetary policy? You know, to us, it's just clearly just the Federal Reserve. It's totally private. In England, it's the bank, the bank itself, and the assets are more owned directly by the government, but it's fully carried out by private banking interests that are responsible to the Monetary Policy Committee, Parliament, but it's still all private bank actions, benefits. And that right there kind of raises or I think illustrates somewhat modern monetary theory people's to me failings, but not the things that I disagree with them about, because their modern monetary theory, okay, is all fiscal. It's all fiscal policy. So is it monetary theory or is it fiscal theory? Fiscal sustainability. Their fiscal sustainability is based on the government acting, yes, pro-type Keynesian, to fill the gap between the private sector's failings to meet those needs from that trajectory that's been created by the debt money system itself. Inherent in the debt money system itself is that system of the trajectory. It's the cause of it, and it's inherent in meeting it, and it's the failure to meet that when it falls off, Nick. Okay, that's the debt money system going broke. Okay, and you know what I mean by that. So having said that, to me, monetary and fiscal policy ought to be all part of the government, ought to be all under the government, because it is the government system of money. The currency is the national unit of circulating medium that all the people of the country rely upon to have their job and have their wages and all of that stuff. So to me, to turn it over to the private sector for its creation, not for its lending, but for its creation, is part of the insanity that we live with today, and that we need to undo. And it's one of the reasons why I said in my reply yesterday why I agree with you about the fact that neither the expansion of the debt by the government nor the austerity measures, especially, are going to work to solve any kind of a problem except getting either one hole or the other deeper. So, having said that, think about a couple of the other things, how they relate, to monetary reform or the need to reform the money system in order to get out of this, kind of a problem. Whoever made the observation about on Spain about the 300%, and well, we live in a debt money system. So all that debt that was created, created prosperity because we needed the debt to have the money. Again, the insanity of that. Back to the permanent money system, back to Robert Hempel's quote. Back to the fact that if the banks don't lend, we don't have money. That's the falling off. That's the falling off the cliff part. It's true. it's a truism. Yeah, we won't have any. And you say, well, yeah, that is true, but 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 we need to do something about it. Some very good observations that you made with regard to the household sector. Remember, this is all covered actually in Stephen LeChance's paper. Household sector's 13 trillion is primarily new fractional reserve created debt money. Okay, it's new money because it doesn't exist. You go in to buy it. You go in to buy a house. The money doesn't exist. The bank creates it right there on the spot, and there it goes. And if anybody doesn't think that's true, Google the Credit River decision. So you have all new money being created, all new debt being created. Okay, and then you have businesses primarily all new debt, all new fractional reserve debt money being created. But when you get to the government sector, when they create debt, they don't create new money. Now they can, they occasionally do, and especially during this crisis they have. But for the most part, government debt, the real government debt, okay, where there's an issuance of a security, does not increase the money supply. It's just reusing, it's just recycling debt money that's already been created, that's already in the possession of the businesses and or the households that are going to be buying up those treasury securities. So there's no new money created. In essence, there's no new debt money created. Okay, therefore there's no real debt, real new debt created. Okay, so that's the difference, Nick, of the government sector. Okay, they borrow money already in existence, and by the way, that's what all sectors should do, Nick. Okay, all sectors should be borrowing money that's already in existence. That's the name of monetary reform. Okay, that's what would happen under monetary reform. We would not increase the money supply by increasing the debt. We would not increase the debt by increasing the money supply. We would increase the money supply by government spending, and we would increase debt by ordinary business, personal, industry borrowing. And that's how it should work. Then you get down to that financial services, the financial industry sector, that the largest sector, Nick, that you don't seem to quite have a handle on. That's 16 trillion. Where does that come from? At one point you alluded to it's just interbank borrowing, which is more on the correct side than you said something about part of its fractional reserve. The only part of the financial sector borrowing that comes from the fractional reserve is the equity part of it. So therefore it's not the debt part of it. Okay, that is to say, when they're leveraging at 30, 40, 50 to 1, it's the 3%, 2.5%, 2%. That money actually came from creating new debt money, but it's equity now, okay? But the rest of it is leverage that takes place completely within the financial industry. They create the money, and by creating the money, they create the debt. So we have a situation where, the largest increase in the money system, in the money supply, takes place as a result of things that happen in a completely unregulated and a completely, speculative and in a completely asinine, if you ask me, way to try to manage the money system. And Nick, trying to manage the debt, given that we have a debt money system, is trying to manage the money system. Okay? Summary. All money is created as debt. It's all created as debt by private industry, Nick. Okay? You can blame the government for letting them do it, but don't blame the government for doing it. Okay? Blame the government for letting them do it and take the government to task for letting them do it, but don't blame the government for doing it. The government didn't create that debt. Okay? Private industry and private banking created that debt. Okay? Sometimes they say, well, the government set the interest rate. Well, so what? The government set the interest rate. The government sets floor interest rates, The private industry uses them however they want. However they want. So we have a situation where what needs to happen is we need to correct first the private creation of the debt, and second, we need to make sure that the government itself does not need to borrow any money because it has the power to create the whole money system, the whole money supply. Thanks, Nick.